Days before his wedding, an uptight lawyer gets tricked by his grandpa to loosen up in time for spring break. An accomplished lawyer named Jason Kelly attends his grandmother's wake. As he finishes entertaining his colleagues, his cousin Nick shows up and starts claiming that their grandma was murdered. She actually died from cancer, but Nick thinks this is merely a conspiracy. Just then, Nick starts making a scene, so Jason's controlling fiancée, Meredith, warns him to silence his cousin. Because of this, he tells Nick to stop, but he'll only stop messing around if Jason hugs him. With no choice, Jason hugs Nick, but he only blows smoke into his ear. Later that day, the funeral starts, and Jason's U.S. Army veteran grandfather, Lieutenant Colonel Richard Kelly, joins them. After the funeral, Nick starts talking to the priest, but he's sharing about his profession as a dog breeder and starts to get a little graphic on it. Meanwhile, David, Jason's father, starts to reason with Richard, asking him why he wants to drive to Florida already when they just had the funeral. Richard replies that he and his late wife like to go there this time of the year, and he can't drive on his own because he doesn't have his driver's license anymore. With this, he wants Jason to take him there. However, David explains that his son's wedding is just around the corner, and he's busy with work. Richard reassures them that they'll only be gone for the weekend, and after that, Jason will be back in Atlanta. He guilts them into agreeing, so Jason is left with no choice. The following day, Jason drives to Richard's place using Meredith's pink car. When he arrives, he's greeted by the horrible sight of his grandpa having some personal time. Although traumatized, he pulls himself together and drives Richard to Boca Raton afterward. Before they can get there, they stop by a diner for lunch. However, Richard notices that Jason is occupied with work, so he asks if he's working for his dad's firm. Jason replies yes, and Meredith does too. This surprises Richard because he always thought that Jason would pursue his dreams of being a photographer. However, Jason replies that working at his dad's firm is practical, adding that it has a lot of upsides. Richard, on the other hand, is unimpressed and sarcastically agrees with the concept of law being fun. He then leaves for a bit to check out the liquor store nearby. While he's away, a lady named Shadia recognizes Jason from one of her photography classes. When her friend Bradley hears that Jason's a Florida alumnus, he tells their other friend Lenore that she can finally complete the trifecta, which is her bucket list to copulate with a freshman, an alumnus, and a professor. However, Lenore says she already had an alumnus, so now she needs a professor. Just then, Shadia decides to say hello to Jason, but he's too occupied with work. He ends up giving her the payment, thinking that she's a waitress. Offended, Shadia decides to take the money and run off with her friends. However, Jason doesn't take long to catch up with what they've done and chases them to their car. Coincidentally, the car doesn't start, and they're forced to confront Jason. He soon recognizes Shadia, and he's surprised to see her. Just then, Richard surprises Jason, and he flirts with Shadia while introducing himself as a professor from Georgia. Hearing this, Lenore immediately flirts with Richard, but her friends are holding her back. Shadia then cuts their conversation short, saying that they have to go to Daytona Beach. Before they leave, Lenore dishes out a vulgar attempt at making Richard copulate with her, and she ends up being hauled back into the car. Later that day, Richard plays golf with Jason, but when he sees some hot women, he shifts his priorities. He teaches them how to play and claims to be a professional golfer and a retired astronaut. When Jason calls him grandpa in front of the women, the man discreetly claims that his grandson is a bit off in the head. After this, he grabs some drinks for the women. While he's away, Jason says that he's a lawyer and Richard is his grandpa whose wife just died. Their shifting narratives scare the women off, and this annoys Richard. The two then argue, and Jason says he's not being respectful to his late grandma. Richard replies that he's been loyal for 40 years, but his wife told him on her deathbed that he should get back out there when she dies. Unable to bear this idea, Jason concludes the conversation and says he just wants to play golf. Later, Richard opens Jason's phone, which he successfully does because he remembers his birthday. They then receive a bare picture from Lenore, and Richard is determined to go to Daytona. As they drive through Daytona, Meredith calls, but Jason's phone falls on the car's floor. Because they're stuck in traffic, he puts her on speaker, and she ends up discovering that they're in Daytona Beach. This enrages Meredith, and she threatens Jason to call her tonight from Richard's house in Boca. Later on, Jason worries about what Meredith might do, but Richard comforts him with some random quotes that he sees in the souvenir store. Just then, a man with a horse mask enters the room with a gun. The two panic, but it only turns out to be Pam, the store clerk. After he confirms that they're not cops, cops, he sells them some stuff that'll make them high. However, the two are not interested, and Richard merely puts a penny in Pam's charity jar. Afterward, they head to the beach to catch up with Shadia and the others. There, Richard immediately flirts with Lenore while Jason nerds off about photography with Shadia. The women's jock friends, Cody and Bra, arrive at the area, and they're threatened by the new faces in the group. Cody almost gets into a fight with Richard, but Bra calms them down and takes the women. Lenore then tells Richard to go to the pool by the hotel. Shortly after, they follow, and Richard gets into a beer chugging contest against Cody and his team. Unbeknownst to them, he put Xanax in one of Cody's cups. However, Jason accidentally consumes the said drink, but Richard keeps quiet about it because they just won. Later that night, Jason gets high and dances at a party while only covering himself with a bee-stuffed toy. It doesn't help that Pam made him puff some smoke, which makes Jason more euphoric. After this, he rides off on a motorcycle and ends up at the beach the following morning. He suddenly wakes up to Meredith's call, and she demands he goes on FaceTime. To his horror, his entire family is present, and he doesn't look put together at all. As they make him practice his vows, a random kid approaches him, and Jason does his best to keep him away. The kid's dad sees them and gets the wrong idea, so Jason abruptly ends the call to explain himself to the man. Still, the father is enraged and shoves him into the sand. To make things worse, the police arrive and take him to the station. There, he ends up in a cell with Pam, but because he's friends with the cops, they let him out. They even give him back his bag of pot, which baffles Jason. Jason then tells the police that he's a lawyer and he knows his rights, but the police only mock him for it. Just then, Richard bails him out of jail, and he ends up walking out with a funny-looking outfit because they're the only ones available. As soon as Jason sees him, he gets so mad that he tells him that he won't drive him to Boca anymore. He'll drop him off at his veteran buddy's house, and he'll return to Atlanta. However, they soon learn that Stinky, Richard's veteran friend, is unable to walk due to liver failure. Stinky says that he has 1 month left, and all he wants to do is play bingo. This upsets Richard, making him realize that he might die soon, so he has one last shot to feel young again. With this, he pleads with Jason to bring him back to Daytona, where he can be with Lenore and live his remaining years without regrets. Jason gives in to Richard's plea, and soon after, they're back at Daytona Beach. There, they join a flex-off contest and go against Bra and Cody. They then start performing various stunts, and the crowd goes crazy for them. However, just before they're announced as winners, Jason walks off the stage because people are taking pictures of him, which might jeopardize his career. Richard isn't taking this defeat, so he creates a makeshift bazooka to fire at Bra and Cody. This makes Jason wonder what he really did in the army because he knows way too many things that an army mechanic wouldn't. Richard then reveals that he was in the special forces and trained insurgents behind enemy lines from Vietnam to Iraq. After explaining himself, he shoots Cody in the nose, which causes him to bleed. That night, Cody gets taken to the hospital, and because Richard picked the young man's pocket earlier, he got the keys to his room. He then pretends to be Cody's dad and tells the doctor to sedate his son and pull the plug if he has to. As Jason gets dressed for their night out, he asks Richard if he plans to tell his dad that he worked in the special forces. If he did, it might explain why he was always away and might improve his relationship with David. However, Richard avoids the question and judges Jason's outfit instead. He thinks it's horrible, so he gives him something to wear. Later, the two head to the club and meet with the women. Jason gets dazed by Shadia's beauty, while Lenore seduces Richard. They then spend the rest of the night drinking and partying. However, Bradley gets bullied by some men in the club, so Richard butts in to defend him. Richard doesn't want to stir up a fight inside, so he tells the men to settle it in the parking lot. On the other hand, Jason is panicking because they're obviously outnumbered. When they get to the parking lot, Jason takes the first punch. However, Richard easily beats up the others, except for the one who punched Jason. He then takes him down and makes him apologize to Bradley. Bradley then smirks, saying that he accepts the apology. After this, the defeated men leave, and everyone is in awe of Richard's skills. The following morning, Jason goes with Shadia to one of her nature campaigns. There, he takes photos of her and casually says she's beautiful, and this almost leads them to kiss if it weren't for Bradley's call. Shadia says it's an emergency, so they return to the hotel. There, Bradley tells them that the men from the club abducted Lenore and Richard. Because of this, they head to the men's hotel room, but when they arrive, they're surprised to see them chilling with with everyone. It turns out that the men and their friends have made peace with Richard, and they're all good now. They head to a karaoke club where Richard raps for everyone. After this, Shadia sings with Jason, but he gets lost in the moment and ends up overshadowing her. While everyone is shocked by his performance, Cody steals Richard's ID and finds a bag of recreational substances in his back pocket. Later that night, everyone returns to the hotel. There, Richard talks to Jason by the pool, and he thanks him for being the best wingman. Just then, Jason shares that he's thinking about calling his wedding off. Hearing this, Richard comments that being married takes a long time, so he should pick an interesting woman. Jason realizes that he can't keep the truth from Shadia anymore, so he gets up to tell her everything. However, when they get to her room, he receives a punch from Bra. It turns out that Cody searched their names on Google, and now they know that Richard isn't a professor and Jason is engaged. This breaks Shadia, and she tells him to leave. However, the cops suddenly bust in, and they find Richard's supply in Jason's jacket. Before they're taken away, Jason sees Richard's driver's license on the table and realizes he had it the whole time. The following day, they get bailed out of jail, and Jason walks out of his cell in a funny outfit again. He then starts lashing out at Richard, accusing him of lying about his license to get him to come with him. Richard replies that he wanted Jason to think of himself for once and adds that he's been a lousy father to David. He wants to at least save Jason from ending up like his dad. However, Jason realizes that he's a last-minute redemption project, so he tells Richard not to come to his wedding, and he returns to Atlanta. In the following days, Jason prepares for his wedding while Shadia gets ready to leave Florida. One night, Jason receives a gift from Richard, a camera and an embroidery project from Stinky. The next day is Jason and Meredith's rehearsal dinner. There, Meredith plans out a full-blown production number with him, and they sing for their guests. As they do, a slide presentation plays in the background behind Meredith, but as the song progresses, Jason's photos from Florida start playing. Unbeknownst to them, Richard is responsible for all this. When the performance ends, Meredith turns around and sees a horrifying photo of Jason. She screams to take the video down, but when Jason sees a photo of Shadia, he finally musters the courage to speak up for himself. However, Richard disables his microphone, and Jason can't be heard by everyone. Because of this, he tells Nick to tell Meredith that he thinks he can't marry her. Nick then relays it to everyone in the room until it reaches Meredith, and this makes her laugh. She then tells the waiter to tell Jason that she copulated with Nick while he was gone. Hearing this, Jason takes it as his cue to go. When he gets outside, he's greeted by Richard and Pam, and together, they get into Pam's ice cream truck to catch up to Shadia. David tries stopping them, but Pam tases him, and he gets knocked out. They end up bringing David with them, and while they travel, Pam doodles on his face. Just then, they get stuck in traffic, so they follow a different route while going at full speed. However, this catches the attention of the two stubborn officers, and they start chasing the group. Richard then tells Pam to lighten their load, so he does just this and starts throwing random things toward the officer's car. Meanwhile, David wakes up and starts asking Richard why he's so skilled at driving. Jason then encourages Richard to tell David the truth, and he finally reveals what he did for the army. Just then, they catch up to Shadia's bus, but the driver hates Pam, so he refuses to stop. With this, Richard drives towards the bus to force it to stop, giving Jason a chance to finally speak with Shadia. He tells her to stay, but Shadia refuses because she has to go with her protest group for a big project. Jason asks if he could join her instead, and this makes Shadia smile. They then kiss, but the officers break them off. Defending his son, David tries taunting the officers with the law, but they only mock his credibility because of the doodles on his face. Pam then tells the officers to let his friends go, and for some reason, they respect him more than anyone else in Florida, so they do as he says. After this, Jason tells David that he's going with Shadia, and his father is actually supportive of this plan. Jason then thanks his grandpa for everything, and just before he leaves, Richard gives him a pocket knife that has the Special Forces seal. Meanwhile, Meredith gets occupied with Nick. Later that day, David finally drives Richard to his house in Boca. Before parting ways, the two promise to try and make their relationship better. When Richard enters his home, he finds Lenore already waiting for him. Finally, the two get to copulate, with nothing stopping them. Months later, the two baptize their son, whose godparents are Jason and Shadia. Lenore is now married to Richard, so she's legally Jason's step-grandmother and takes the role seriously. As he holds his son, Richard promises to try to be a better father.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.